Any religion that tells us that a man is God, or that God became a man, or that God is everywhere in everything, I am God, you are God, the tree is God, the sun is God, the moon is God, everything in the creation is God. I say, what's the proof? Where's your evidence? Bring me evidence to support your claim. Give me a reasoned argument why we should believe that. So there I was, walking along in Saudi Arabia, and there in the middle of the desert, I found this mobile phone, a product of billions and billions of years of random events. Yeah? The oil bubbled, the earth moved, the wind blew, the sand shifted, the sun shone, the lightning struck, the rain fell, the wind blew a bit more, the camel trod, and after billions of years, this mobile phone formed itself by a process of random events. I turn it on, hi mum! So let's use this process of reasoning and of common sense in order to understand the world around us. Now there are some principles that we could call universal principles. There are some things that human beings everywhere, they accept to be true. They're truisms, universals, and it's something we call common sense. Common because it's common. Everybody accepts these things. I'll give you an example. Would we all accept that part of something is less than the whole of a thing? Part of something is less than the whole. Yes? There you go. Yeah? Common sense. Okay. Would we also accept, generally from our human experience, you don't see something coming from nothing? True or not? Yeah? Except in Norway, when you get your electricity. But no, you don't find something coming from nothing, right? Do you find order spontaneously arising out of chaos? Do we find that? No. Our human experience, in our human experience, we don't find that. Where we see order, where we see patterns, where we see laws, our human experience, our reason, our common sense tells us that someone or something has imposed those laws, made those systems, made those forms through which and by which things function. So let's look at our world, and let's look at our universe, and let's look at everything around us, and apply these simple, basic, reasonable assumptions to try and make sense of the world around us. Well, when we do that, we see that also in our human life, in the world around us, in the universe, we find laws. We find order. We find things existing according to patterns. We find form. We find systems. We find order. Therefore, it's only reasonable as a human being to presume that an ordered, systemized universe, that this order and this systemization and these forms did not come from nothing, nor did they spontaneously arise out of chaos. Because there is very little, if anything, in human experience that would make that a reasonable assumption. Rather, it's reasonable to assume, where we see things working according to laws and according to patterns, that someone or something with intelligence, something with power, something with will, has imposed those laws and those patterns and those orders upon that thing. That's why, if I was walking in the desert, excuse me, is that you got a mobile phone there? Have you got a mobile phone? Can I borrow it, please? Thanks. I don't need to use it yet. Okay? See, I was walking along, well, you know this is not true, but anyway, I was walking along. Does anyone know what this mobile phone is made of, right? Two basic components, three. It's got plastic, it's got glass, it's got a silicon chip, right? And it's got a few precious metals. But mostly, its major components are plastic, yeah, and glass and silicon. Okay, where does plastic come from? Does anyone know what plastic is from? Oil, thank you. And glass and silicon? Sand, good. Tell me the name of a place with lots of oil and sand. Saudi Arabia. So there I was, walking along in Saudi Arabia, and there in the middle of the desert, I found this mobile phone, a product of billions and billions of years of random events. Yeah? The oil bubbled, the earth moved, the wind blew, the sand shifted, the sun shone, the lightning struck, the rain fell, the wind blew a bit more, the camel trod, and after billions of years, this mobile phone formed itself by a process of random events. I turn it on. Hi, Mum! I'm asking you a simple question. Is that reasonable to make a claim like that? It's not, it's more crazy than the guy with the red underpants asking to read your electricity meter, right? That's not reasonable. That's not a reasonable claim. That's not a reasonable assumption to come to. Yet, that's exactly what we are being asked to believe by some people. Some people are claiming that our universe, that our solar system, that the life that exists in this planet is a product of random events. A big explosion leading to ordered, systemized forms of existence. And by the way, the most primitive cell, the most primitive life form is much more complex than this mobile phone. Much more complex than this mobile phone. But the reality is, what we find when we look at the world around us and we think about it, look at the alternation of the night and the day. Think about it. What if the earth was spinning? Okay, the earth spins on its axis once every 24 hours. What if the earth was spinning really, 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 really slowly? Imagine a day, right, was 30 years long, and a night is 30 years long. So the sun is shining on one part of the earth for 30 years. The other is in darkness for 30 years. What's going to happen? One part of the earth's surface will be superheated, the other will become super cooled. Very hard to imagine how life would exist. We just happen to have the right composition of gases in the atmosphere, of oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon dioxide. This balance is essential for life to exist. Ozone. We have a layer of gas called ozone that just happens to filter out the harmful effects of the sun's radiation. If the ozone layer, by the way, was too thick, it would have a detrimental effect. If it was too thin, then the radiation would exterminate life on the earth. The crust of the earth's surface happens to be just of the right consistency for life in order to be able to exist. If it was too thick, it would be a problem. If it was too thin, it would also be a problem. The distance of the earth from the sun. The same thing about being too hot or too cold. In cosmological terms, in terms of the whole size of the whole universe, you can see how finely tuned this planet is for the existence of life. And that doesn't only apply to our planet. In fact, it applies to the very conditions that brought this universe into existence in the first place. The nature of gravity, the force of gravity, if it was much stronger, I mean, stronger by something like a trillionth of a percentage. I mean, a huge, tiny amount. If gravity had been stronger, then the universe would not have expanded. If it had been weaker, then the same. Either if it had been weaker, it would have just gone on and expanded too fast, and stars and galaxies would not have formed. If it had been too strong, then the universe would never have expanded. This is just some of the fine-tuning that we see in this universe, the laws through which and by which the universe exists and life is allowed to exist. And we could mention many, many more. For example, the stronger and weaker electromagnetic force and other things. The point is, some of these things, of course, are speculation, some of them are theory, but what does it show is that we live in an ordered, systemized universe. What is there? Why is it reasonable to assume anything except that this universe must have been brought into existence by a power and intelligence? Now, many atheists, they will say, well, the only thing they can't deny this fact. They can't. So what do they say? They say things like, well, okay, if the universe has a creator, then who created the creator? Okay, so if that's your argument, can we just take a step back and say, are you admitting at least, therefore, the universe needs a creator? Are you agreeing to that? Are you saying design compels us to believe in the existence of a designer? Okay, if you agree with that, let's go from there. There is a very logical and reasonable assumption to make. The nature, and this is very important, the nature of the intelligence and the power that has brought the universe into existence, the nature of it must be different from the universe itself. Why? Simple. If the nature of this force, this power, whatever, we're not going to give it a name yet, is the same as the universe, then in fact, if you think about it, all you have is more universe. If the nature is the same, then it is the same. Then all you have is more of the same. Right? And that's a problem. Because you'll say, well, if the nature is the same, if the nature of this intelligent force is the same, then you will ask, well, who created or what created that? And if that is not different, you'll say, who created or what created that? And if that is not different, and you can imagine, you go on and on, you have this idea of a creator creating a creator forever, which is a problem. And I'll tell you why it's a problem. Simple analogy. Imagine there is a sniper. He has his target in sight. He radios back to the HQ. I've got my target in sight. HQ says, wait a minute, I have to check higher up. And higher up says, wait a sec, I have to check higher up. And higher up says, wait a sec, I have to check higher up. Yeah? So if they keep saying, what's this guy? Is he ever going to fire the gun? No. There has to be somewhere where it stops, right? There has to be a place where it's higher up and there is no more higher up. Or else the trigger will never be pulled. It's the same thing. If you have a creator creating a creator, creating creators, creating creators, creating creators, you never get anything created. You never get any creation. But here we are. It's right here. That's why it's logical, rational to presume, common sense, that the nature of the creator must be different from the creation. So if the creation is temporary, the creator must be eternal. If the creation is finite, the creator must be infinite. If the creation is limited by space and time, the creator must be unlimited by space and time. If the creation is needy, the creator must be self-sufficient. Now tell me, reasonably and logically, how can you have two infinite, eternal, self-sufficient beings that are unconfined by space and time? You can't. It doesn't make any logical sense. There could only be one such being. All of this just goes to show that how we can rationally come to an understanding. What is the most rational explanation for our universe? Is it must have a creator who is one, who is infinite, who is eternal and self-sufficient, and who is not like anything in the creation. I introduce all of this simply. Why? Because that is the first thing I offer as ID. The first thing I offer to show that Islam is the true religion is what Islam teaches about God. Because Islam is the only religion, except Judaism, but it is the only religion that teaches such a concept of God without confusing and compromising this concept. Christianity, for example, has a similar concept, but then Christianity tells us that Jesus is God. What does that mean? The whole way that, because we agree that the nature of God must be different from the creation. Did Jesus eat food? Yes. Did he breathe air? Yes. Was he born? Yes. According to Christians, he's going to die. He did die, right? And even Muslims, we believe he will die. Yeah? So that means he's needy, he's mortal, he's temporary. He was confined by space and time. So that means Jesus is like the creation. He's part of the creation. So by definition, how do we even know there's a God? We asked a Christian. Well, they will give the same arguments that we gave. So what do you mean then? How can something be temporary and eternal? Mortal and immortal? Needy and not needy? At the same time? It's impossible. Doesn't make any sense. So any religion that tells us that a man is God, or that God became a man, or that God is everywhere in everything. I am God, you are God, the tree is God, the sun is God, the moon is God, everything in the creation is God. I say, what's the proof? Where's your evidence? Bring me evidence to support your claim. Give me a reasoned argument why we should believe that. Otherwise, old man in the red underpants, go away, you ain't coming in my house. All right? Where's your evidence?